Drums keep pounding a rhythm to the brain. La da 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 dee. Da 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 da. Drums keep pounding a rhythm to the brain. La da 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 dee. Da 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 da.
What's going on, guys? We are live for another live stream with Mitch on the mic. It has been a couple of weeks, guys. It has been a couple of weeks. I can acknowledge that it has been a while since we did our last live stream. We got a big one today, though. We're going to be joined by RC Maker's very own Ryan Maker. We're going to go through a couple of things with recent announcements and all that side of things. Some really big announcements from a brand new touring car coming into the on-road scene. So pretty much without further ado, I might as well get him on board. He's standing right here, Mr. Ryan Maker.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Yeah, good, matey. How you been?
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, been good. Been like super busy, more busy than I could have ever imagined. But no, it's great. Just soaking it all in, like trying, enjoying the journey as well. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy past year, but also the past couple of months have been extra crazy with everything coming to fruition. So yeah, it's been really great. It's been, had to slap myself a few times, sit down, soak everything in a few times, and then continue the work. It starts 5 minutes after that. But it's been brilliant. So yeah, super excited.
Yeah, bloody busy. I can.
Yeah, yeah.
I can always feel it coming out of you.
yeah, for sure.
All right. So, for the people that don't know, we did have a live stream roughly about a year ago where we went through quite a fair bit of your sort of coming into the RC game and stuff. So we're not going to delve too far into that sort of side of things, but we'll just run through just a couple of quick basics of sort of where you got into the game and where that's progressed to and how we got to your sort of story now. So you actually started flying planes to start off with, and they were actually built by your old man
That's right. Yeah, he actually had a company called Bolster Works Australia, and they bought in raw balsa wood blocks from Ecuador, and then pretty much his job was processing them into sheets, and then we sold them to companies like Model Engines. You'd know today we used to actually supply them balsa wood and stuff, and then he also used to make the kits out of the balsa wood and sell them as well. So yeah, it was from a very young age that I was hands-on in manufacturing, thanks to Dad. I kind of think a lot of what I have today came from that, starting that so young. But yeah, I was flying planes at what would have been around age 8, I guess you'd say, with Dad. And yeah, we would make he would design a new plane and we'd cut it out and build it together and stuff, and kind of go down to the local flying club and stuff, and yeah, kind of taught me to fly personally. So I got my what's called bronze wings, which meant I could fly by myself, which was cool. So yeah, and then shortly after flying, I kind of got a little bit bored of just flying around in patterns, and then that's when a few years later I was kind of Dad took me down to Somerville in Melbourne, and I saw that and I'm like, man, this looks cool. This is proper racing. I get to race other people. This is sick. So that's what kind of started my journey in. So yeah, it began in RC, not cars, planes, but pretty much anything RC I've just always been hooked and absolutely loved. So yeah, it all started from that.
Do you remember your original or first club that you went to?
Yeah, it was MPR CCC was the name. It was at Somerville Rise Primary School in Somerville in Melbourne, and we were running I think my first proper car was a Kyosho FW05S, I think. Right. And that was a pull start, basically a controlled class. So back in the day, we used to have these controlled nitro pull start classes, and man, that was some of the best days, honestly. It's annoying when you look back and you realize just how good we had it when you don't really know at the time. But we had 40, 50 people in a class all running the same car and engine, and the competition was absolutely nuts. So it's hard to get something like that these days. I mean, the new front wheel drives are probably the closest kind of thing to that kind of really competitive level. But yeah, it was really fun racing those back in the day, and I think that just got me hooked on it. I was kind of lucky at the time that I had such a good scene to be brought into and so many guys, older dudes like Lou Solar and Trevor Way, they kind of took me under their wing and helped me learn and helped Dad learn. So yeah, I just had it was a really good scene. There were really good people, and it was just a really good way to enter into the hobby, I suppose. So yeah, it was awesome back then.
Yeah. And I've been trading from flying planes into racing cars. Did you find yourself a bit of a natural? You started roughly around the age of 11, from what I could find.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was 11. I would say I picked it up pretty quick. Yeah, like it was, I don't know, like I hadn't flown a lot of planes. It was mostly like Dad and me watching Dad and that sort of stuff. I flew a bit myself, but yeah, it wasn't really like, me going crazy, delving into it, wanting to be the best plane pilot. I was still young and I was just happy to be able to get the things around the sky without kind of crashing them, So yeah, when I went into cars, it was from like even in the first couple months, it was kind of like, okay, I'm not bad at this, like I wasn't hitting every board on the track, and back then it was a boarded track, so if you weren't good, it got expensive pretty fast. Luckily, hobby shop, so that made that a bit cheaper. And I used to raid his hobby shop constantly for tires and everything for the weekend. Sorry, Dad, but yeah, no, it was really good back then, and I think I just kind of, without blowing my own trumpet too much, I feel like I just had a bit of a knack to it. It kind of came naturally, and I didn't feel I ever had to force anything, if that makes sense. But I think also at a young age, you're like a sponge, so anything you do at a young age is just easier than when you're doing it when you're older. So yeah, I think it kind of just came fairly naturally to me. And then just kind of as the years progressed, I got better and better and started, winning some stuff. And then I moved from nitro to electric and started in stock and electric. And I did basically two races in stock. And I was like, this is way too slow, because I was used to nitro, like driving nitro tourer, so it was like basically the speed of a mod car. And then I went into mod in electric, and that was actually just happened to be when brushless and lipo, just brushless technology was coming in, and that made my life a lot easier in mod, because it was just plug and play, no more chewing comms or any of that stuff. So I went in at the first time, and then with that, at that point, you could pretty much buy stuff off the shelf, the old LRP Spheres and Novak GTB. You could buy them off the shelf and be competitive. You didn't have to have all the fully matched comms and all that, and brushes and all that sort of stuff. Like, we didn't need that, so I could shoot close to the top. I think my first event was a Much More Masters, I think, at SMA against like Ari and Simon and all those guys, and I think I got fourth at my first mod event. So it was surprising, honestly, because I didn't really expect to be up there. But yeah, it kind of came fairly naturally, and then it took a lot of years to get better from there, because as with anything, the last 10% is always the hardest. So I feel like I kind of got better really fast, and then it's been like really plateau since there, just trying to find those last tenths up until probably 2020, I would say, probably just before COVID, where I think I would have said was the peak of my driving. Actually, probably earlier than that, probably like 2018 was like the peak of when I was really enjoying and wanting to push myself and be faster as a driver. And since then, I just probably haven't had that same kind of pure motivation to get faster or better or anything like that. And that's just so coincides with when I started RC Maker in 2018. So I think it's kind of, my head has switched from driver mode to, wanting to make stuff and wanting to support other people and see other people do well with my parts and stuff like that. So yeah, I think my interests in everything have definitely shifted over the years, but what I do now is the best thing in the world. So can't complain.
Yeah. No, exactly. Actually, Renato found it interesting, the aircraft side of things.
Oh yeah, he does a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I could see you watching on as well. Thank you very much, Renato. Yeah. Once again, I know it's in the title somewhere along the lines or in the comments or whatever. But feel free to ask questions as well, guys.
Yeah, go for it. I'm happy to answer anything. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to skip a few years now. We're going to go all the way to roughly about 2018. You actually started up RC Maker. Like, how did you actually sort of decide that you wanted to get into that sort of business side of the hobby rather than just racing RC cars?
I started actually distributing stuff a little bit before that. I'm not sure if you remember the brand VBC, but it was a pretty popular brand back in the day. And I got aligned with VBC pretty well, and I was a team driver for them, and there was no distributor, so I kind of just took it upon myself to start selling their gear here. And that worked out really well. So we had a really, I was driving a lot at the time and the car was working well. And I actually had quite a lot of input into the design and stuff of the car as well. And the company was great to work with. So it was Jesse. Yeah, it was good. It was good in its day, Jess. It was pretty good back then, and we did pretty well with it. I won a national champs with it and lots of state titles and stuff. And we had a really good team going. There was lots of guys running the car, so it was honestly really cool. And I was selling it, and kind of that was doing pretty well. Just supporting the guys in Australia, nothing international or anything. So yeah, it was good back then, and that probably would have been my entry. And then I moved to Automatics. I think Automatics was in, I can't remember exactly the time, but yeah, it was around the RC Maker time. Transitioned into selling Automatics stuff, and then at some point I was kind of like, I just really want to start doing my own stuff, like other brands can make parts and sell them, like why can't I, So I kind of started delving into it, and it's good old dad again that kind of helped me out with that, because he could obviously draw in CAD. So he, with all of the plane design and stuff, so he kind of taught me that side of things. The programming of like the CNC, and it just so happened that dad actually built his own CNC just because he wanted to. We managed to figure out how to make that all work. So yeah, basically just started buying carbon, just figured it out and started making some of my own parts. And in the beginning it was, small stuff like your bumper mounts and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously it grew from there. But there was a small little portion that I missed where, Paul from Berserk, Paul was making stuff for me. So I just kind of, I can't remember. I think I'd send him like the design or whatever, and then he'd cut it out and ship it to me, and then I'd package it and resell it. So that happened for a while. And Paul was awesome until I kind of figured it out how to do it myself, which kind of made things a little bit easier, and then I started delving into that. So yeah, it all started from there. And then as RC Maker started kind of growing, I just kind of started making more parts and more ideas, and people were really on board with the stuff I was doing. I was trying to do stuff a bit different, which is what I've kind of always done. I don't want to just do like your typical clone parts and stuff, because no one wants to buy something that's exactly the same as the original manufacturer. They'll just go buy it from the original manufacturer. So I've always been like trying to do stuff different, like either make it look cooler or try and get the performance better. And a lot of my parts have been used all over the world, which has been awesome. So yeah, it's just kind of grown from there slowly until what it is today. So it's pretty crazy to look back, on thinking it was only 6 years ago. That it feels like longer, to be honest, because yeah, it's been a pretty rapid evolution, especially in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah, quick question from Tim. What's Warren up to these days?
Oh, Timmy, man, I would love to catch up with Timmy. It's been so long. What's Dad doing? Not much, to be honest. He's retired now. So yeah, he pretty much just kicks back, and we're living on the Gold Coast. I'm not sure if you know, but yeah, so he just kind of chills out all day and does what old retired men do, which is not much. But yeah, he's got in the garage, he's got like a workshop and a woodworking and metal kind of workshop. So he kind of gets out there and lathes up stuff and mills up stuff, and did a bit of woodworking and stuff. So making vases and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, he loves it. Just kind of does what he does, and yeah. So
yeah, no, I got to catch up again with Tim only a couple of weeks back at ABC.
Sweet. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Because was his son racing or something?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was driving. They actually drove up and flew down. So
oh man, yeah, right.
I'm pretty sure it's that way.
That's a drive and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that way, not the other way around. But nonetheless, it's pretty solid drive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very solid drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a couple other things. Let's see. Oh, that boys are just talking about Paul Mason getting back into on-road. That'd be good to see, wouldn't it?
Paul's grabbing a frontie. That'll be awesome. Yeah. He's got everything. He's got everything sorted now. He's all ready for it. So it's going to be cool.
He'll test the durability of it for sure, mate.
He'll be right.
No, it's good to see. Yeah, actually, that's another point. Yeah, I've sort of noticed that as well. It's been exciting to see you evolve as a business and a person. So
Thanks,
no,
Baden. I
it
really
has been.
appreciate it, man. Yeah, I've known Baden for a long time too, so it's cool to come up with all these similar guys around me that have kind of we used to race with. So yeah, it's and having their respect and everything is yeah, it's honestly really important to me because I value those guys' opinion and everything. So when they look up to me for what I've done, it's pretty damn fulfilling. I got to admit.
Yeah. Um, on the RC Maker sort of side of things, and
Yeah.
you know, you just mentioned before that you sort of transitioned or didn't transition. You went straight in with your own parts, and I feel as if that
Yeah.
a lot of the RC industry at the moment does tend to be, as you mentioned, that sort of copy and paste sort of
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
What is it? Just like an ease of manufacturing that you can sort of see design, redesign the exact same thing, just put your own spin on it. Do you think now that you're a designer of products as well,
Hmm.
do you sort of see that as being the go with that sort of
Yeah, I
side?
mean
Or
it's definitely easier, but I just like for me running a business, and wanting to develop a brand, I don't see why you would just copy. For me it doesn't make sense because
yeah,
you're doing stuff exactly the same as everyone else and you've got no point of difference. Like why would somebody pay, a similar amount for your part that looks exactly the same than they would of the original product,
yeah,
like you just buy the original because at least that's what the team drivers are using. That's the same material exactly as what the car came with, all of that sort of stuff. So if you're
yeah.
just doing the same thing, I think it's okay. The price might be a bit cheaper. That might be the only thing. But I think most people in RC would be happy to pay that little bit more to know that they're getting something that is of the original brand's quality. So yeah, I mean, if you want to evolve your brand and you involve your skills and everything, for me, it's just I just have to do something different. It's just not even an option. I don't think I've ever released a part that is the same as the original part, even if it's stuff like battery mounts or something completely, kind of irrelevant to the performance of the car. I've always tried to do something different, and I guess that's where my geocarbon stuff came from. Was it's basically where we machine parts out of the carbon to give them kind of like a geometric effect, and that's where the name geocarbon came from. But that has been a big point of difference in my business, which has made it possible to get a lot of more people using it because it looks cool, and it's honestly all it is. It looks cool. And yeah, that takes a bit more time on my end because machining all those extra details in, like cutting my bumpers would probably take 3 times the amount of time as what cutting like a normal basic kit bumper would be. Like it's really a lot of work. But that then gives us a point of difference to everyone else. And our bumper on the car looks awesome compared to say the kit bumper, which looks maybe a little bit boring. So yeah, for me it's always been about providing points of difference and adding extra features. Shock towers, rather than copying a shock tower, we'll add an extra hole or we'll allow a finer adjustment in holes or just small stuff like that, which can make all the difference for somebody buying a part. They're like, well, I can get the original one, or this is a cool option as well. It's similar price, maybe a bit cheaper, but it's also got a few other things that could be handy in it. So yeah, for me, I don't really get the whole copycat thing. I mean, yeah, I get why they do it. Is because it's kind of the easy way out. But for me personally, like as a racer, if I was, to be buying stuff, I would be, if there was no point of difference where I could go like, oh, hey, I want to test that, or hey, that looks better. Like I would just be going straight back to the original manufacturer stuff because at least I know that's what the team's running. That's what comes in the kit. Like I know that the quality's there. So yeah, for me, I really I don't like seeing that kind of stuff. It's always cool to see evolution, and that's what I tried to do with the car as well. So yeah, just try to do that through all my product range and just have point of differences on pretty much every single product that I release.
Actually, Renard is bringing up something that I was literally just about to mention as well. Seen a few of Ryan Goods copied by others. How do you sort of deal with someone copying your idea? Would you
Yeah.
take much offense to it? You sort of say, well, obviously it was a bang up
Yeah, I
idea,
mean,
but
yeah, as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So, yeah, I mean, I don't lose sleep about it for sure. But if it is something like significant that I've come up with, like my horizontal rear body mounts and stuff like that, it's a little bit annoying to see sometimes when it's copied. But for the most part, I do have to thank most of the industry because it could be a lot worse. Like it really could be so much worse. So it's some things like most brands have left for me to do because they've kind of seen like, oh, this is an original idea. Like I'm not gonna, and I'm not including like the 3D printed, brands because those guys kind of they're just making budget stuff mostly for themselves, and then they'll pop it online for people to buy at a cheap price, and that's totally fine. Like, people are funding their own racing and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But as a developed brand, like, yeah, it's cool to have a lot of like people knowing that I am the original designer. So if something, if a product very similar to mine gets released on Red RC or something, it just gets absolutely flamed in the comments, which it's very cool to feel that. Like, I feel sorry for the company in a way, but it's very cool to have that kind of support from people. They know, and I think that's just the RC industry being so tightly knit. Like, everyone kind of stands up for everyone and knows who the original is. And if you try and get something past them, it's probably going to blow up in your face, because, the RC guys don't forget. Like, they got very good memory.
And ruthless as well.
They are
Absolutely
ruthless.
comments.
They take no prisoners with their comments, that's for sure.
Yeah, man. You will, as you mentioned, man, they will go after a company if they see a copy.
100%, big time. Yeah, that's another reason why I make sure I do not copy anything, because I'm like, I don't want to be flamed for this, and definitely don't want to call it my own when it's not. So yeah.
You see it a lot in the 8-scale tire wars going on at the moment.
Yes, exactly. So many brands that look exactly the same.
Man,
yeah.
They're like, well, I can straight copy, man. That's a straight copy. This is crap.
They
like,
barely even change it at all. Yeah.
But it is ruthless.
It doesn't feel great, but
no. And obviously you've sort of had a fair bit of work, as you say, designing stuff, and we'll get onto the cars in just a moment, because I think we've got a fair bit to talk about with the cars. But one thing that's sort of slightly off topic, but also within obviously RC, Speed Secrets book. You bring that out. Would it been 2015? Like,
it was 2016 actually, because I remember I sold it at the Nationals at Templestowe. Right. That was when I debuted it. Was the November 2016 actually? Yeah. So a long time ago.
Yeah. Have you found that all, or at least majority of the information you sort of put out at that point is still relative to today's sort of cars?
It's interesting you mentioned that, actually. Yes, I've been intending to write a new book for a long time, actually, because a lot has changed. And like, whilst I think the book's value is worth it even just for the setup section alone, because it's got a lot of good stuff in there that, I swear by, and, works great. But yeah, a lot of the car building and stuff definitely is a little bit outdated, because it was based off rear motor chassis, and stuff was a little bit different back then. So yeah, I would say that it is in need of an update. Definitely, I don't have the time for an update, but I would love to one day go through it again. But because like the support we had for that book overall has just been insanity. Like, we've sold several thousand copies, which is incredible. So, and like, in on-road RC especially, I think people are constantly looking for that tiny little bit to improve, because a lot of the improvement is in the car. So, even half a mil here, like at half a degree there, it can be the difference between, an average car and a great car. So I think people are just looking for that extra little bit. And I think the book, is helpful, and it definitely helps people to try and to fine tune their cars better, and, realize what they're doing wrong and stuff. So the general concepts and everything in it, I think, still apply. Like, if you take a big kind of picture look at it, but obviously like the nitty gritty technical details, are obviously a little bit outdated. So yeah, it would be great to do one again. But for now, it's just just don't have the time, unfortunately. So.
Do you still see the odd person with the book in hand, like at events? Like, I know you don't.
Oh man, actually,
many events.
It was crazy in the US. Actually, the guy pitting behind me, Ryan Appleberry, he actually ended up winning I think it was the 21-5 class over at the US one-up invitational race. And yeah, like I looked over when I got up one time, and he's just got his head in the Speed Secrets book. I'm like, dude, I'm right here. Like,
just asking,
he's
man.
Like, he's like, I don't want to disturb you. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. So it was kind of funny. He'd like read it and then turn around and be like try and get a bit more information about what I've written, and I'd had to read it again to refresh my memory. But yeah, no, it's really cool. Even for a laugh, Ronald Volker carries it in his bag everywhere he goes, and he sends me photo when he's like lost on his setup. He'll send me a photo of his head in it. It's just for a bit of piss take, but it's pretty funny. So yeah, honestly, that book, I think it's had a great impact. In general in the RC community. There's guys like JQ and stuff who's done a great book in off-road, and I'm sure he's probably going to do more in the future. So yeah, I think any information you can get, like, I mean, let's face it, the books are cheaper than a set of tires. Like, you would be crazy. Like, even if you're at the top of your game, like, I would still buy any book that comes out, because like, that's information that, it's going to get you a lot further than a set of tires is going to get you, you know. So
Yeah.
especially if you're looking to level up, like if you're happy where you are, then sure, like grab a set of tires, whatever, like that. If that's what keeps you on the track, sure. But you know, if you're looking to improve, you don't need that latest speed control. You don't need that latest servo that, you know, is half a 15th, you know, lower latency or whatever. You need like information, knowledge. That's what's going to get you faster. So yeah,
Yep.
I'd say like generally just any information that comes out, that even if it's from a source that's, you know, possibly not even verified, that, you know, just read it, because it might twig your brain to, you know, realize something that you haven't realized before, or, you know, several things. So yeah, and any knowledge is good knowledge, you know, in my opinion, as long as you kind of, because RC, it's so, there's no one way suits everything, you know, like one change can do one thing at one track, it can do the opposite at the other, another track. So there's no RC, like, you know, Bible that like has like everything is correct all the time. So it's good to just grab as much knowledge as you can. It's obviously tricky having differing opinions in different books and stuff. You're like, oh, which way do I go? And when that happens, like for me, that would be a, let's go to the track and try it, because, you know, you're not going to find out unless you try. So that's what practice days and club days and everything are for, is for, you know, verifying like what it actually does to yourself, you know. So it's all good to read it in a book, but as long as you like then take and apply that on the track and, you know, confirm that that's right. And that's what I always did. Like I read the Triple X main setup book that Martin Crisp wrote, and it was cool actually hanging out with Martin when he came to Australia for a couple of years way back. So it was cool to meet him. And yeah, he taught me, like his book taught me quite a lot as well. So, you know, I absorbed from that. And then I took that and then say the X-ray setup book back in the day as well. And then I'd, you know, go to the track and then test stuff and be like, okay, like that book said that, and that was definitely not right, you know, or whatever, and kind of formed all of my own opinions based off that, and then stored it in my head for many years, and then eventually spewed it out into a book. So,
All right. We'll flick on over to, I'm guessing what a lot of people are probably tuning into the stream for. That is your new cars that you announced. Well, it would have been, it was mid to early this year now.
yes,
it's
yeah,
been a
just
good
before,
6
it would have
months.
been just before TITC, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
The announcement was earlier than I had have hoped, in all honesty. Like I didn't want to announce something and then keep people waiting for a long time. But because I was an automatics driver and I was heading to TITC, it kind of would have been not the right thing to do on their behalf, to kind of start rumors like, oh, Ryan's not even running an automatics, or, you know, is that a prototype automatic? You know what I mean? So I kind of just wanted to get ahead of all of that and announce the project then, just so that it, you know, didn't get too out of hand kind of thing. So, you know, not that, you know, I'm high profile or anything like that, but you just never know. There could be a photo that could, you know, and it also allowed me to hide the car because people knew that it was a prototype. So, you know, even in the pits and stuff, people weren't snapping photos and stuff. So yeah, it was kind of just wanted to get that out there, even though it was a bit earlier than I'd hoped in the whole, you know, development timeline. Yeah, it was a necessary evil. So
yeah. Okay. We'll quickly bring up your Facebook page, actually.
Yeah, cool.
And may as well have that sort of running in the background.
Yeah,
if
sure.
I can work out how to do that again. It has been
You'll
a
be
while.
better with computers than I am, that's for sure.
Oh, I don't know about that, eh? There we go. What isn't
There we are.
So yeah, over on the RC Maker page here, like the information and stuff, the videos and stuff you got out. So if anyone hasn't already checked it out, which I'm sure majority of people that are watching onto the stream have probably already seen a lot of the videos, a lot of the photos and stuff that you've been putting out over the last few weeks and stuff. If you haven't checked it out by some chance, make sure you head on over to the RC Maker Facebook page and, you know, have a look at, you know, what's going on and that sort of side of things. But yeah, we'll go through a couple of things with the actual car itself as we're sort of looking on with the car. So when did you actually sort of realize that you wanted to build your own chassis?
Yeah, I would say like a couple of years ago, because it's been like, yeah, it's been a long time coming, to be honest. But like there was a long period there where I was like, you know, this is all just too hard. Like I wanted to do it, you know. And even when I announced it to you, like in the previous live stream, there were still so many hurdles that I was like crap. Like I hope I can back up what I've just said. You know what I mean? Because there's so much stuff to do and like skills that I hadn't yet learned that I was going to have to learn to make this thing happen, you know. And manufacturers I hadn't yet met I would need to liaison with and kind of like figure out how to make this happen. So there was so much that had to go on, and it was just so intimidating. Like I would just stand at like looking. It was like kind of standing at the bottom of Mount Everest and like just looking at the top and just going like, how on earth am I going to get here? And that's honestly what it felt like. And for me, it was just like, okay, how am I, like, I'm just going to have to take this one step at a time. You set like very small checkpoints along the way and you just reach them one at a time. And that was kind of, I would say, what it all was just like just small little wins and small little, advancements one after another. And eventually getting to this final part. We haven't delivered the cars yet, but that what you see is exactly what you're going to be getting. We have 95% of the parts in inventory at the moment, so it's all just putting it together. But yeah, so massive project, something way bigger than I honestly ever thought I would be able to manage. Especially, I haven't done it on my own, but it's been a lot of myself. So yeah, just managing the whole thing coming together has been super difficult, especially starting from zero. I think like when you're developing a new car from an existing car, it's a lot easier because you've already got your drive line, you've already got your diff, you've already got your spool, you got your drive shafts. Like, you've got all your basic parts. And if I wanted to develop an SP2 now, I can basically take like all of that drivetrain and everything and do my own carbon, because obviously all the carbon on the car is produced by myself, and get aluminium samples of everything that I want made out of aluminium. And then I pop the drivetrain and everything that I already have in there, and I develop an SP2, so it's so much easier when you've already got like the basic parts to work with. So like if you've already got the drivetrain and everything, you can start with that and, start testing a new car straight away. Like, for me, if I had the ideas for an SP2 right now, it would probably only take me 2 months to actually get one on the track. So whereas this original car took me 6 months to get on the track. So it's a lot faster process the second time around, and that's what's just been so difficult, is starting with nothing essentially. So I've had to use other brands' parts for a while just until we get our own made, and so there's been a lot of back and forth and machining stuff out because I had to fit a bigger, like a different brand diff in because I don't have my diffs yet. And, and then the drive shafts are a different length, or you got to shim your hexes to compensate for the different drive shafts because you don't have your drive shafts yet, so, and all that stuff's obviously linked. Like, you can't run one brand drive shaft, another brand diff, like you got to run the same so all the cups fit and all that sort of stuff. So there's just been several months of just, back and forth, and like to finally have a car that is 100% my parts. I can't explain how good that is, because it just having my own stuff just like makes everything so much easier. So just having the car all mine, I can now, it just feels like I've arrived, and I can now work a lot easier just having all my own parts that all fit together exactly right. So
yeah, no, I can imagine. I'd say, when did you actually, I think you sort of brushed a little bit on it then, but when did you actually start the actual building process? Like, and probably including when you were sort of testing just your own parts.
I kind of veered off topic a little bit there. Sorry, but just go from one thing to another. So the original car was built in, so it would have been May last year. So basically, it was pretty soon after I got back from TITC. I did TITC, I did AOC, which was in Brisbane, and then right after that, I kind of just like, I love the car, and I had great events. I finished. I can't remember what I finished, but yeah, it was good. I had some really great performances, even though I had barely driven, that year. So yeah, I was really happy with it, and I don't know, something just twigged, or I was like, let's just try. Like, I'm going to be blunt. Like, I basically took like Automatic's drivetrain and everything, and I'm like, I'm going to build my own car around this. Like, that's got to be a start. Like just do. Like just the start, just do something. Like, you just get something going, like that's the thing. Most people have ideas and they just don't know where to start, and they always just procrastinate, and it never ends up actually happening. So I was like, just do something, get something on the track, something that, even if it's not exactly what you want, exactly your ideas, just do something that, resembles your own car. So I pretty much just, broke down, okay, what parts can I get from other cars? What parts can I make myself? Obviously the carbon was all taken care of by myself. So yeah, I could pretty much make all that myself. And so yeah, it just basically started designing the car. And I can't believe how much different that car that I first designed is to now. So yeah, I just like started from that and started prototyping parts. For the first car, I made all of the bulkheads and motor mount myself on my CNC. It's funny because it's actually the CNC that Dad originally built, because it's the most sturdy one that I have, and that did actually a pretty good job. But it was really tricky for me. Like, I've never machined something in multiple axes, so it was really kind of difficult to get my head around that, because I'd never machined something that way before. But I knew that I really only had to make one of every part, if that makes sense, because I was like, okay, I just need one for the car. Like, that's it. If I mess it up, I'll just start again and make one more. You know what I mean? It's not like I need spares and all this sort of stuff. Like, okay, just make one that works. So I kind of made my own basically completely custom car. Automatics drivetrain. I think I was using X-Ray X423 or 22 upper arms. Sorry, the ones that were just like that. And yeah, I pretty much just started with that, and I went to the track. And the first track day that I did, like, it was pretty phenomenal how fast the car was. Like, I was only a couple of tenths off what I was doing at AOC on massive grip. So I was like, well, this is pretty promising. It's the same concept as what you see. It's a low top deck, lay down shocks. Obviously, everything wasn't tuned to the extent that it is now. It was like an automatic steering rack and, all this other stuff. So it wasn't tuned to the extent it is now, but it was mostly for me just to verify the concept. Like, okay, does this low top deck work? Like, flex wise, do these shocks work? Like, because there's so much fine tuning, like, in off-road and shocks, it's ridiculous. You got, your high speed dampening, your low speed, and all this other stuff. There's just no one can really, quantify any of it. It's just, does it work or doesn't it work, really? So
it's all out of my league, mate. I
yeah,
don't understand any of it.
yeah, just put what the kit says and go.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah, but there's so much like magic going on in there that I kind of just like had to verify, like, is this car going to work? Like, is this concept even viable? Because I'm not going to keep working in CAD, like, putting, like, literally this project was thousands of hours in CAD. Like, I'm not going to go and put, thousands of hours in CAD if I'm just wasting my time with a concept that's just, not going to have any traction. So,
yep.
Knowing that I had to put something very good on the table, to back up my brand. My brand's known for having good quality and all that. And like, if I release a car, I'm like, I'm gonna have to bring something decent to the table. People aren't going to be they're not going to be expecting something average. Like, it's going to have to be good, and it's going to have to work well. So, I just wanted to verify all that was the case first. And, from my tests with my really dodgy homemade car, to be going that fast and feeling that good straight up, I was like, well, I'm onto something. So, and I've driven a lot of cars in my time, like over, it was pretty much 20 years that I've been racing. Like, I've driven probably 7 or 8 different brand cars on, however many tracks in the world. So, I know what a good car feels like and should feel like. And I instantly was like, this has potential. Like, I could just feel that it was, had a lot of potential. It wasn't the easiest thing to drive. It was a little bit of a handful, but like, the lap times were unreal. So I was like, well, I can just, for now, with what I've got, like, I can just deal with that, and driving the finished product now, it's like, actually feels like a totally different car, which is funny because it's got like the same concepts, but so much is different in regards to materials and everything now, than what I had on the original prototype car. That, yeah, the car is like super easy to drive now. Like, it's like, you put it on the track and it just feels absolutely stock. It's got a lot of rear grip, whereas the original prototype was quite loose. So yeah, I think that's just come from so much fine tuning and all the shock angles. Like, yeah, the rocker arms you see there are literally, they're tuned to within a couple of tenths each side of the rocker arm kind of thing, getting the leverage right and the rate of change of the wheel versus the shock. So how much wheel movement there is to shock shaft movement, basically. Tuning all of that, as well as progression. So like, how fast does the shock like ramp up? Because obviously you want it to get stiffer as it goes through the stroke. So there's just been so much fine tuning that is what basically transformed that, fast but hard to drive car into a fast and still easy to drive car. So yeah, it's changed a lot. It's still the same very, very basic concept at a raw level, but like, you know, every single aspect of the car is very different. And going from where I did, like I drew that car in CAD, and then I feel like I've drawn 3 cars or 4 cars in CAD just to get this one car, because the amount of times I've gone back and kind of not started again, but I've realized something I could do better, and I've had to step back and, like, you know, all that work I did is basically wiped clean, and then I've got to start back from here again. So, you know, and there's just been so many versions of the car. So the first original version, which was the prototype, I basically designed. Well, after I did that, I pretty much draw everything up in CAD to spec, and I got it manufactured by a manufacturer that did all my aluminium and stuff. So I had my own aluminium. It wasn't, you know, dodgily machined by me. And then that was basically the car I took to TITC. So the car that went to TITC was a refined version of my first ever prototype. And yeah, I think I finished. It's in the C final there, so it wasn't an amazing debut. I would have liked to be faster, but you know, from going from nothing to that in the space of probably, you know, 9 months, like from a home built car to, you know, competing with, I even had like guys like Hara in my main and stuff, you know. So it's like, it's not like you're doing bad to have that, you know. You're still, the car, like from a car that, you know, you just designed out of your head. Like I was like, that's not a bad start. So from then, I went home and I realized something that I could do a lot better. And actually a really good photo right there to just illustrate it. If you go back to the one that shows, so the shocks before were moved about 15 mil further away from the center of the car, both front and rear, because we had like a normal A style lower suspension. And what that did is having that front, where that front suspension arm screwed in it, if it was in a normal spot, it'd be quite a lot further forward on the car. So where the shock is now is normally where you would see like the front part of a suspension arm. So the biggest probably revision of the car was after TITC, where I wanted more rotation, and the car I just felt was like just lacking a bit in the corner. Like it was just kind of not rotating and whipping through the corner as much as I wanted. So I figured that was mostly down to the weight just being too far out on the car. So the car couldn't pivot and rotate. So that was my biggest thing, was then, okay, let's try and center this weight as much as possible. So I moved around the pivot to the arm. I moved them a lot further in. I mounted the shock a lot further in. And obviously there's so much other stuff that I had to change with that. So it was like new top decks and everything as well. Like everything's kind of linked together. So all those sample parts that I just paid an absolute fortune for were basically all ready for the bin. So yeah, I pretty much like binned all that and started again. So yeah, it was this, in reality, like if I had have tried to release the car faster or whatever, this would essentially be an SP2, because the amount of work that went into refining this next version was like next level. So yeah, I went from that car to this next car, and you know, immediately on the track I could just notice the massive difference. It just rotated heaps nicer and just had more natural corner speed, and you know, it was still really nice to work on. It was still forgiving on the track. So I knew I was definitely onto something, and I confirmed this at a few tracks, and it was great at every single one of them, both high grip, low grip. So yeah, I knew with this I was kind of onto something. And when I look at it too, I'm much more, I'll just say, proud of that refined version, is because, like, to me, that's putting my best foot forward. Like the car before, I was like, yeah, it looks kind of like a normal car, but with just shocks like kind of slapped on the end of it. And I'm like, this isn't, it's, you know, I think I need to revise stuff around this more, like make it look more integrated, make it look like the car is designed around the shocks rather than, you know, the shocks around the car kind of thing, just slapping them on the end. So yeah, I feel like this version is like, so much better. It's just packaged so much nicer. Like in terms of the shock positions, like towards the like center of the car, like they're very probably similar to say an X-Ray X4 23, which was obviously an extremely, you know, it did extremely well. So yeah, I think like there's nothing in terms of the shocks that, or the weight, that is too far out or more far out than a normal car, which honestly with this type of suspension, it's been very hard to achieve, because of just, you know, like the shock is so close to the diff. Like you can even see it in that, you know, there's been things that have just been like, you know, couple tenths of a millimeter away. And it's just been like packaging all that into something that, you know, is reliable and consistent and definitely won't touch no matter what happens, you know, and just like packaging all that into something nice and neat and looking refined. So yeah, whilst you just look at it, you're like, oh yeah, cool. Like it's been a lot of work in getting all those shocks and everything moved in as far as I can, and then, you know, working everything around that. So yeah, I would say essentially this is an SP2, but, you know, I wanted to, being my first car, I'm like, I just want to put my best foot forward. I want to release something that I personally am like, this is the best I could do, you know. And obviously I'll keep developing it over time, but I feel like this is like a really, like, this refined version is just like, yeah, it's, for me, it's like, yeah, that's the best I could do, and now it's up to everything else, you know. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't even imagine the sort of the work levels that you've put into it. Actually, that sort of falls onto my next question as well. Like,
yeah, cool.
how full on was the actual process? Like, you know, not just the actual designing of it and sort of the prototype, but
Yep.
leading into the actual going, okay, well, I've got the car now. I need to make X amount to be able to distribute and that sort of side of things. Like,
Oh
and
yeah.
you know,
There's so much more to it than I think. Like, and I don't blame people for not caring about it. I mean, at the end of the day, they're just buying a product like anything else, you know. So yeah, they don't need to care about it. But as a manufacturer, there's so many things. And I think there was an interview, I think it was with Ryan Mayfield actually, on one of the podcasts overseas in the US, that was really good, because Ryan actually went into a lot of, you know, how Alfa kind of operates with their molds and everything, and how people don't realize how expensive a mold is, you know. So if I don't know if anyone can check it out, but yeah, it's a really good interview, and he goes into a lot of that as well. So it's, yeah, when you're dealing with big manufacturers like this, basically every single item on this car has a minimum order quantity. So I can't just go and order like 20 turnbuckles. They're going to look at me and go, dude, that's like, you know, $100 worth of product, or, you know, $50 worth of product. Like, get stuff. You know, it's going to take us 5 hours to set up our machine. We've got to order raw material. We've got to get someone to program the CNC for $50. Like, you know, get stuffed. So you have to, when you commit, you've got to really do it in a big way, because, like, say a thing like, so a thing on a car that's only one of, so say on this car, say the motor mount, there's only one motor mount on the car, you know. So, and then say they've got a minimum order quantity of 400. You're like, okay, I'm getting 400 motor mounts. That's 350 kits, you know, plus 50 spares, or else I'm going to have motor mounts just sitting there doing nothing. So then you go, all right, 350 kits. Let's start adding up all the, like, oh crap. You know, it adds up very fast. You realize just how, you know, especially when there's things of like one on the car and you know you need to meet that minimum. So basically for our first batch, we had to do several hundred kits. And that wasn't really a question. It was just, that's what you got to do. And after all of that worry, you know, it's tricky, because it's a lot of investment financially, and also as like I've already got an established brand, so releasing something like this, it's like a big reflection of the brand, you know, like a massive one. It's the biggest thing we've ever done. So, you know, it has to be right. So when there's that much kind of weighing on everything, you don't want to do anything in halves, or, you know, you don't want to cut corners or anything. You've got to do everything by the book. You've got to do it properly. You got to release the car. You got to make sure you've got enough parts. There's just so many factors to consider, man. It's like, there's just so much going on. So it's a very intimidating process. And actually it's funny, because I was talking to JQ just the other night. Actually, he messaged me and just talking about the car a little bit. And someone I got mad respect for, because, you know, he's done a lot of his own design as well. And yeah, I just said to him, like, man, this has been tough. And he's like, oh yeah, it's not easy, is it? So yeah, it's cool to confide with other designers, but it's really not. And I think, you know, you don't see that many people doing it, because it is really, you know, really difficult. Yeah, I don't know how I'm here. just worked, man. Like, just honestly, just worked at it, like, just step by step. You know, I found some manufacturers that were really great to deal with. You know, they were happy to, you know, like, provide samples, you know, revise samples, and not just keep, you know, charging me every single time. They've been really nice to work with. They've been, you know, understanding. If I've made a mistake, you know, they're happy to fix it up or whatever and send out another sample. Like, I think that's half the battle, you know, when you're working with other suppliers, is just to be able to find people that, you know, can, you know, actually understand it and can work with you and, you know, get what's going on. And that definitely makes life a lot easier, because when you send that drawing off, there's nothing saying that part is going to come back exactly like what you did. And in RC, the tolerances are so minute that, you know, I've had stuff that's 0.03 of a mil undersized and it doesn't fit. I'm like, guys, we got to redo it. You know, 0.03 of a mil, like, you would think that would be a negligible amount, but if you're pushing a bearing into a hub and it's 0.03 mil undersized, that bearing don't go. And if it does, it's going to bind like all hell. So there's so many things like, you know, and bearings, for instance, a 6 mil bearing is not actually 6 mil. It's like 5.98. You know, so if you design something at 5.99 to fit into a 6 mil bearing, it doesn't go. Ask me how I know. So yeah, it's been a massive learning journey and a very intimidating journey, honestly. Yeah, it's taken every part of me. Like, there's been days where honestly I've just been, you know, think something big, you know, may have gone wrong or whatever, and I've just been like, oh man, like it would be so easy to quit right now and just, you know, just can it all. But like I've just kept on going because I just know how important this is, and I know you know, this is everything to me, releasing this car, and, you know, having my own team and being able to travel around the world racing my car. Like, you know, that's what's been keeping me going. And like, now that I'm, you know, starting to arrive there, still a lot of work to go, but now that I'm starting to arrive there, I'm so glad that, you know, I just kind of kept pushing at it, because yeah, it's been a wild ride and something I honestly never thought I'd be able to achieve. So it's pretty cool.
Talking about traveling to events, and that's the side of things
Yeah.
Todd's got onto is, have you got any events coming up to debut the car?
Yeah, cool. Actually, yeah, the Queensland title, I wouldn't call it a debut as such, but I'm hoping to race the Queensland titles. I am actually waiting on one part, and if that part doesn't arrive, it may be a little hairy. But yeah, I'm definitely aiming to race the Queenslands in a couple of weeks. So yeah, that'll be awesome. That'll be a fully 100% production car then. So that would be really cool. So hoping to get there. Obviously, I've got the Worlds in a couple months in California as well. We went testing at the One Up race there. So kind of starting with a leg up there, which will be good because I've kind of done a lot of laps on the track now and got a few great days after the race of set up and really, really developed the car a lot. Plus, you know, getting a bigger US team and stuff. We're going to have some team drivers. They're going to be testing there too. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one as well. Like, it'll be cool to come into my first Worlds with my own car, with our own team. It's going to be pretty damn cool. So yeah, looking forward to that one as well. And then, yeah, the plan after that is, you know, Europe and, you know, more Asia races and stuff. I'll definitely be going to an ETS or two. And yeah, just supporting the people that have supported me, you know. So all of our dealers, have been so many dealers, you know, selling heaps of cars around the world. You know, most of my cars were bought by my dealers. So, and, you know, I want to support them for supporting me. And that requires me going to races that their team is at, or, you know, their customers are at. And yeah, that's what I want to do, to just support the car the absolute best I can. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Mentioned drivers and stuff there, and I won't get you to name any names.
That's
but
all right.
Do you have a couple of sort of drivers lined up for, you know, Europe and also the US and stuff in mind?
Yeah, we've got a couple in Australia that are confirmed, but obviously can't announce just yet. Which will be amazing. They're all absolutely brilliant drivers and brilliant people, and really glad to have them behind the project. As well, in US, we're going to have a couple of really good team drivers. I honestly haven't been pushing it too hard, because for me, it's more important just to get the car out there to start with. And, you know, once people see it's quick and everything, then they're naturally just going to kind of come knocking, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'm just kind of let it play out and see how it goes. But, you know, we've already got like team drivers confirmed in most, you know, most major distributors areas, if that makes sense. So it's not massive by any means. We don't have any Ronald Volkers or Mark Reinhardts one day, but yeah, for now it's just, you know, like locally distributor supported teams. But we've definitely got some really good talent that and people that can develop, because for me that's just as important, you know, is having
idea.
Yeah, it's having people that can actually develop the car, not just drive it fast. You know, it's people that have experience and knowledge, and, you know, they know their way around setup and all that. Like, to me, that is just as important as getting fast drivers, because that is ultimately what makes a car go fast. You know, having fast drivers and no setup is more actually detrimental to your brand than it will be good, because people go like, oh, he's driving it and he's in the B main. Like, you know, that makes the car look even worse, you know, because you got good drivers doing bad with it. So from my point of view, it's all about putting a team together of, maybe a mixture of people who can both drive fast and people who are really good with setup and stuff, and then we can just develop the car together and get results that way. So
no, fair enough as well. A question when it comes back to the automatic stuff now. When you mentioned before that you wanted to sort of at least somewhat release that you're building your own car, gives a couple of teasers and all that side of things before the TITC event. How did your actual chat go with automatics? Mentioning the fact that you were in the process of building your own car and working on something.
Yes. So automatics is basically two main people. Is Max Makler from Germany. He's basically the team manager, and he manages a lot of the operations at automatics, and a good friend of mine. The other guy is Oleg Babich, who is Russian, and he is the original, designer of automatics, and he designs all the cars, and he is the original one who founded the factory that manufactures them and all this kind of stuff. So I approached both of them separately because they were both very different personalities, I guess you'd say, and I kind of wanted to write something personal to each of them because I feel like I have been quite involved, if not at a development level, but just a general level of automatics, for a while. Like I believed in them even, in their earlier days and stuff. So leaving wasn't easy because I basically, when I originally said to Oleg, I'm basically like, I will drive automatics for as long as I live, as long as I don't have my own car. That was basically the one clause because I love the brand. I love what Oleg does. He's an incredible engineer. So, he's probably my biggest inspiration for design in the industry. So yeah, telling him that those guys that I was leaving wasn't easy. Like when you're hovering above the send on an email going, that's basically what it was. But then, when I woke up to the replies of saying, we wish you all the best on the journey. Like, we're really thankful to have had you over the last years, and we wish you all the best, for what you design, and we're excited to see what you come up with. Like, that's cool. To get that kind of kudos from them is really awesome. So that kind of, settled me down a bit, going like, okay, like, I'm not making enemies from doing this. Like people like, even guys like that, obviously want me to drive their car and I'm not, they're even happy for me, even it's, probably detrimental to them or they lose out because of it. Or the business does, they're still happy for me. So, if that's taking place, I'm like, well, if those guys are happy for me, then, surely a lot of other people, will be happy for the journey as well. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a boost, like, okay, you have a place here kind of thing. Like, it's, so yeah, they handled it extremely well and they were nothing but encouraging. So yeah, mad respect to those guys and their company. I'm still will always be a big Automatics fan because I honestly believe they changed the game, quite a few years back. And, they came into the industry swinging, and like a lot of cars these days are the way they are because of automatics. And I would say even my car too, because my car, if automatics wasn't in the game, I think all cars would look quite different to what they do now. I think they've definitely evolved things in a very specific direction. Whilst they're not clones, everyone's different, but I think the general layout of an automatics is very, imitated these days, let's just say. So yeah, that was really cool to get their kind of good wishes and stuff, and so I could just go on my way.
Yeah, you brought up a good point there as well with the layouts of a 10 scale, like the platform of especially 10 scale touring cars. The actual layout of the cars have really quickly changed in the last sort of 5 years.
That's right.
And it's been a heavily noticeable change, and as you say, there probably a lot of that would be coming down to the automatic platform and that's the side of things. So
I mean, they were the first to like make a mid-motor car work, and now every single car on the market is mid-motor. So they've definitely done a couple of key things. The carbon lower arms and stuff. I think that was first done by Automatics as well. So there's definitely been quite a few key things that Automatics have done that have kind of shaped the industry the way it is today. So yeah, I think it's great because honestly, I think there'd still be a lot more plastic on the cars. There'd possibly still be, suspension, like pins in the suspension arms and plastic, and kind of like how off-road still is. I don't think we would have evolved in this direction, if I'm completely honest. I think that's been a lot of their doing. So
yeah, no, exactly. Stephen Cornell's got a good question for you.
Where's your AMX tattoo? That's he actually has one. So he has an RC Maker and an Automatics tattoo, and he drives a Yokomo. I mean, he does have a Yokomo tattoo too. So, but yeah, he's still got a little bit of us with him everywhere he goes. So one day he'll be back. He'll be back one day. I'm just waiting for it.
Okay. Next one up is what are the main differences that you've had to sort of modify between the SP1 and SP1-F, other than the fact that it's, you got one that's a front wheel drive? What are the main
Yeah.
differences?
Honestly, it's all just weight distribution. Like everything you do to the car to like change it from a touring car is all just thanks to the weight distribution. So yeah, if you pull up a photo, I think it's in the later photos on that black one there. If you
This
go
one
down
here?
a bit, yeah, down a bit more.
A bit?
And then yeah, on the further photos down in there, so just click on probably the latest, the +6 one, and then if you go a few more, you'll probably see the fronty there. Yeah, that's her. So yeah, it's all just weight distribution. As you can see, the motor mounts a lot further forward, so it pushes the motor further forward. You got a shorter front belt than normal. There's quite a few little things that are different too. Like you'll notice that the upper arms are actually the other way around, and the reason that is because by doing that, I was actually able to move the centered transmission an extra 5 mil forward and then shift the arms back. So I kind of pushed everything forward and then pushed the arms and the wheelbase back. So what that allowed me to do is push everything another 5 mil over the front of the chassis. So that's something I don't think anyone else has done because they all use like the same upper bulkheads, the same arms and everything. So I've managed to get the weight a little bit further forward by doing that. And that actually made the rear top deck another 5 mil longer as well. And yeah, so it kind of shifted the whole car forward, but then it shifted the wheels back. So I don't know if you can picture that, but so yeah, I've done that. So yeah, honestly, everything's just designed about the weight distribution being, as front over the front axle as possible. Generally, everyone's looking for like a, 35, 65, or maybe a bit less. You can go, I think the max on my car will be like a 62, 38, like a 62% front, 38%. 68% front, 32% rear. So that's probably the maximum bias you'll be able to get. And there's, as you can see, there's like a few weights and stuff. Like there's those big weights just behind the steering links there. They're like 32 grams on each side. And then you've got more in the bumper. And then you've also got another optional one that sits under the diff. So yeah, there's just absolutely stacked with weight up the front and then nothing down the back. So yeah, but there's a few other design elements around that you've got to consider. Is when you do that, you get a lot more flex in the rear of the car and a lot less flex in the front. So with that rear top deck being so long, it actually does flex a lot more than the front. So there's certain things that, like you can see that stiffener there that's screwed to the bottom of the chassis at the back of the car. That's crucial in making sure that stiffness is maintained, even though the top deck and everything is so long. So yeah, that's the one there. So yeah, that stiffener is crucial. And then that little battery post you see just in front of the stiffener, that connects to the top deck as well, so that you can run basically a post that further stiffens the top deck. So there's quite a lot of tuning options around flex and everything in the car. But yeah, ultimately it is just the touring car, just basically shifted forward. So a lot of the reasons people drive, the same, it's good to drive the same fronty and touring car is that, most of the parts carry over. So you're having to buy a lot less parts. You can keep the same arms for both cars, the same upper arms, the same steering knuckles, the same hubs. Like, 90% of the car is the same. It's basically just a different chassis, top deck, and yeah, like the servo mount and bumper. Like really everything else is the same. Like the bell cranks the steering bell cranks are the same. All the suspension components are the same. And it's just a rear diff that goes in the front. So yeah, being able to I tried to make as much stuff crossover as possible because, I know that touring cars, like cars these days aren't cheap, because of just how far evolved the manufacturing process has gone and the engineering in these cars these days, like the price has gone up. And I can tell you now, manufacturers of cars aren't making millions from it. The cost of these cars is actually very high because there's just so much like engineering and the parts are so, small and delicate, and there's just there's a lot of engineering in them. So yeah, it's gotten pretty crazy. So
yeah, I could imagine. A couple of big rumors getting chucked out in the comments here as well.
Here we go.
Yeah, Jeff Mackey running, Stephen Cornell running the Queensland titles.
Oh no. Oh
jeez. Yeah, well. I'd be down if everyone else got an SP1 tattoo. I'd get an SP1 tattoo at the same
Okay,
time.
awesome, done. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
let's do
Yeah.
it.
Oh, come on,
You
pause.
guys are a worry, I tell you.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. You mentioned before as well major changes. When you were talking about the actual major changes you made during the actual building process of moving the shocks in.
Yeah.
Did you find that there was any other major changes that you found to sort of revolutionize the car, or was that sort of pretty much the only one that really stood out to you?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Yeah, so from the original car, I'd say a lot of it was built in. So it always had the low top decks and the low bulkheads, and it always had that general kind of like ultra LCG was basically the name of the game when I was designing it. So everything was built around that. But yeah, I guess yeah, I would say the biggest like revision that I did through the process was moving the shocks further in. And I know the car responded really well to that. So that would have been definitely the biggest thing I did throughout the whole process. Other than that, yeah, it was just lots and lots and lots of little tweaks, like so many little tweaks I can't even explain. Like every part you see on this car, like every individual part was hours in design, you know. So you look at the shock body, hours, you look at the shock top cap, hours. It's literally hours in everything. So you add it all up and there's just so much work gone into every single part that you see. And there's so many things to consider. So some parts that are made in aluminium, you've got to think, okay, what cutters are they going to be using to make this part? And how many times are they going to have to flip the part and in what directions? Because like you could put one small little chamfer on a part and that might increase the cost of the part $1, but you don't realize that when you're designing. So it's really important to kind of know from your manufacturer what their constraints are, in terms of like say internal radiuses on corners. So if you're using a 2 mil cutter, the smallest internal radius on a corner you can do is 1 mil. So the 2 mil diameter on the cutter, the smallest radius is 1 mil, which is half of the diameter. So you've got to be very mindful of little things like that, making it so things aren't too close together so they can fit a cutter through. Because, if you've got like two things that are going like that and in the middle it's only 0.5 mil, like they're not going to use a 0.5 mil cutter on a 4 mil thick piece of alloy. It's going to snap like a twig, So yeah, there's a lot of learning behind all of that, I guess. And it's just, it was just so many little intricate details that, you don't really realize until you do start to work with manufacturers and stuff. And get pricing on things. Then you're like, okay, how can we make this cheaper? Or is there anything, that stands out on this part that is making it exceptionally expensive, or, stuff like that. So yeah, it was a lot of back and forth, trying to, optimize prices, and like, because I might draw something the way it is, but that's just because that's what I've thought about. It's not because it's efficient or anything like that. It's just because what's come into my head, but there might be something on that part that is very hard to do from a manufacturer's standpoint. So there has been revisions all over the car, optimizing the shape, optimizing the look of things, also the geometry here and there. So yeah, there's been just like constant revisions on every single part you see. Basically, there's not a single part on that car that I designed and it just stayed that exact way, which is what's made it a long process. But I've just every part I've thought, okay, how can I do this better, or how can I make this lighter, or what can I do to make it cheaper to manufacture, or whatever it is. So yeah, constant revisions on everything. Yeah, the biggest main revision being the shocks being brought in, which meant basically all new everything, all new bulkheads, all new arms, new top decks, new suspension rockers, new suspension rods. Yeah, just like so much different stuff. So, but yeah, honestly, it was definitely worth taking the extra time to do that. So.
With the actual design process and stuff, actually, even with the building process, have you actually had anyone lending you a hand during this whole process, or has it just been pretty much solo?
It's been very solo. I do have somebody who is a current car manufacturer helping me behind the scenes, and that is mostly not so much for the design, but more so for, say, for instance, for the plastics. Like, okay, I want to get upper arms made. And like, okay, what plastic do you want to use? Like oh crap, they'll go, there's 300 different variables of, plastic you could use. You go, oh crap, okay, so you need a carbon fiber, nylon, composite, plastic, and everything, and there's a different percentage of carbon, so you can either use 10% carbon in the nylon mix, you can use 15% carbon, and that all gives you like different flex characteristics and stuff of the upper arms. And then you also need to know that all those different plastics, it's a new word, all that different plastic mixes, they all have different shrinkage ratios. So after you mold the part, how much will it shrink once it cools? And that all needs to be factored into the molds and stuff. So that's actually why molds are one of the most, if not the most expensive part of a car, because there's so much little stuff that goes into them. So yeah, that I have had one person helping me who's been incredible, and honestly, I don't even know if I would have got to this point without him. He's been helping me along the way just with stuff like exactly what I mentioned. He's known who to go to get these parts done properly, like to make sure I get steel that's going to handle, all the force and everything. And we don't have problems like drive shafts snapping like twigs or something stupid. So, I've kind of just tried to bulletproof everything by going through, people who I know will do the right job. For the springs, Axon manufacture our springs, the shock bladders as well, Axon manufacture, because two super crucial things. I didn't want to just go to some factory in China and be like, oh, can you copy these springs? I want, this done properly, and I want to know that it's going to work. So everything I would say on the car is, it's from a reputable, place of manufacture, and it's gone through a proper process of, people, as not just myself, but somebody else checking things and making sure it's all right. But I'd say now, like it was a big learning experience through him, and I'd say I wouldn't be 100% fine without him. But now learning what I've learned, I think if I tackled it again, I would be a lot closer to be able to doing everything by myself, just because I've, now that he's taught me, I've kind of learned and I can continue forward. So yeah, I wouldn't say I've been alone, because I've definitely had help, but in terms of, like designing the parts and everything, and, and coordinating all of everything getting manufactured and all the samples and all that sort of stuff, it's all been me. There hasn't really been anyone else. I've just had him kind of advising me and also helping, sourcing places for manufacturing and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. Before we wrap up, we're going to try and wrap this up around 7 o'clock to let both Ryan and myself get a good night rest. Ryan, you probably, with your family.
I think I need. Yeah. Oh, geez. I'll probably be up till midnight with two screaming kids.
I won't say anything.
You better don't. It's all right. I chose it,
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions they want to ask, I've only got one more. So get your questions ready. Chuck them in the comments and all that side of things, and we'll before we wrap things up. My final question, and it's probably a pretty big one. I'm sure it's a question that a lot of people probably have. Are there any other platforms of car that you're looking to build?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely crossed my mind, but I'm just like, let's get to the end of all this first, and once we've got all the cars out in circulation, and I've got stock of kits, like actual kits that I can sell. I've got all my parts inventoried, and where I'm sitting there going like, okay, what's next? Then I'll start to think about it. It's kind of briefly run through my head. The natural progression for an on-road brand is like a 12 scale or an F1 or something like that.
Yep.
I will probably have a crack at a 12 scale, I think, at some point. But yeah, and they've changed a lot lately too. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen like the latest automatics and the new CRC that's come out. Like, everyone's going in this similar kind of direction. Again, automatics was the first to do that. So automatics have changed the industry massively in 12 scale as well. And I think these new designs definitely excite me a lot more than the old ones. The old ones were kind of a little bit boring, whereas you look at the latest automatics from a side profile and it's literally like this high, and it's like, oh my goodness, that thing's insane. So I would love to have a crack at it and just see if I can see what I can think of that's different, to give it a shot, because there's quite a lot of things you can do. There's also a lot less plastic parts and stuff. So in terms of manufacturing, it's far, far easier than a touring car to manufacture. You've got way less driveline components. You've got way less everything. Like, it's just much more basic to do. So a touring car, I would say, is probably one of the hardest to do. along with probably like 8 scale off road and probably nitro on road would be, equally, if not harder. But a 12 scale would take me a lot less time, especially knowing what I know now, to develop. So I'd say that would probably be the next thing. F1's not that popular these days, but it would use a lot of the same parts as a 12 scale. So, maybe, but I wouldn't be, putting most of my time into that. I would say developing this car and then possibly working on a 12 scale, will be probably 2025. Develop, like, my main focus will always be the touring car. Like, it's what I do, and that's, for me, if I was to win a massive event, like, I would want to do it with this car. Like, this would be the holy grail kind of thing for me. So yeah, it's all about developing the SP1. I don't want to get too sidetracked or ahead of myself, but once we've kind of calmed down things with this, it would be definitely, my designer brain will definitely be itching to kind of delve into something else. So yeah, it'll be cool.
Yeah, so we'll lock in next year for a pan car, right?
Oh, jeez. Can we go 2026?
We'll release by this time next year.
The time is flying at the moment. It's like, it's honestly so crazy. Like, I know, like, next year, like, TITC, and then it's just, even this year's flown, from going to TITC, if you had told me it would have taken till September to release my car, I would have laughed my head off and been like, you're kidding. And the guy that I work with said a similar thing. He's like, you're going to be surprised at how long this whole process takes. To go from one car to go from one car to 400 in production with all the correct tolerances, with instruction manuals and everything. It's like, there is so much work that has to happen to make this go. It's like, I think Elon Musk says a similar thing about Tesla. He's like, it's the easiest thing in the world to make one, but then when you go and make thousands or mass production, then that's one of the hardest things in the world. So yeah, I think it's 100% true. Making one was almost the easy part, and then I was like, and it was the fun part. Don't get me wrong, it was the most fun, because that was when the creative process happens, which is what I love the most. But then after that, it's kind of like, okay, one's cool, but that's not going to get you anywhere. So, we have to turn this into a production level kit that, people can open the box and build and drive and enjoy. So the amount of work that goes into from basically February until now has been totally next level. And yeah, I would say it's my less favorite part, because it's a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of organization, a lot of, costing and budgeting and this and that. But yeah, my favorite part of course is the design and the testing. Like, that's what I really want to do. But I feel now that I've got kind of a grasp on everything, like the next models and everything will be easier, because I'm not starting from zero now. I'm kind of got a bit of a platform to work from. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to developing and, working on new models in future, and just trying to push everything to the absolute extremes. Because I look at this car and I think to myself, like, I don't know what I could do better. I'm only going to know once we get, more laps, more drivers, and, things will start to become apparent that can be improved. But for now, I mean, I feel like I'm putting my best foot forward. So.
Right. All right. We'll roll on over into a couple of viewer comments. Glenn Wilson, can ASP1 take out the 2024 nuts?
Oh, geez. I mean, we're going to have people in all classes. Without giving away any names, we will have hot contenders in hopefully 21.5, definitely 13.5, and definitely modified. And I'll be racing too, so I'm going to give it a crack. But yeah, I hope so, and I hope Glenn will too. Maybe.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
Stephen Cannell again. Does this style of suspension call for a softer setup, i.e., spring and oil?
Good question, Steve. So yeah, front is fairly normal and rear is a bit harder than normal, because I'm not, like, on a normal car, you'll notice that, like, the front suspension is normally further towards the center of the car, the rear suspension's further out, and that basically changes all your leverage points and everything. So even on a normal car with the same stiffness front spring and oil, front and rear spring and oil, it actually feels stiffer at the rear naturally. And this is also something that Automatics has had to combat, because they've got the same pivots front and rear. And if you see on my car, it's exactly the same pivots front and rear. So you can't get that stiffness as much from the mechanics of the car. You got to get it through the suspension, through the shocks and the oil. So I'd say a typical setup on the car would be 350 front, 450 rear oil. And then spring, we're running like, say, a 2.2 or a 2.3 at the front, and then like a 2.7, 2.6 at the rear. So there is quite a big split between front and rear. And I've done a lot of testing in regards to that. And yeah, definitely like, your 100 CST split in oil and like probably 0.3, 0.4 in the C of the spring is a good place to start. So.
All right. I have to highlight this one because this will be one of my first YouTube comments, other than the time where Facebook decided to let me down. So, Fridge Magnet RC, congratulations on new cars, Ryan. They look awesome. I'm in.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, yeah, I'd like to know how you actually got onto my YouTube side of things, Fridge, if you let me know on that, because I have had very few comments on I haven't done much publicization for the YouTube, so be interesting.
Cool.
Over back to actual comments, questions. From the first proto testing to full production, what was the hardest learning curve in terms of pure car setup? That's a pretty epic question.
Whoa, that is an epic question. It's a tough one. I would say, like, at first I started to copy what all the other cars do. Like I tried to like clone the feeling of the suspension based off other cars and everything, and to a limited kind of success. It was only when I really started going like, my car's different, I'm going to do different stuff, because like I need to see what happens to start with. So things like roll centers, like the trend these days is running a really high roll center on your bottom arms. But then on the other hand, there's guys like Mikkel and the Schumacher who's running like super low on the deck, and he's absolutely smashing everyone. So it made me think like, okay, I'm going to try this lower roll center. And the second I tried it, like the car came alive again, and I was like, oh my goodness, because I'd just driven a few events with a high roll center only, thinking that's what everyone else is doing. Like, I'm going to have to do this. And then I went in that direction, and I was like, wow, that's a lot better. So I would say the biggest thing has just been trying to figure stuff out for myself. Like, just, it is a little bit of a different animal to all the other cars. Like when you adjust roll center on this car, it does adjust the stiffness of the suspension as well. So I was running really high roll center, really stiff spring to counteract that. And it kind of like wasn't getting me as far as when I lowered the roll center, went way softer spring, car became faster, easier to drive. And yeah, it was just better in every aspect. So then I was like, okay, I've unlocked something quite big here. And it was actually at the 1-up race where I figured that out, because the car was like really gripped up, because the track was super grippy. Track was super gripped up, and it was, the car was hard to drive, and it was wanting to traction roll and this and that. Lowered the roll center, soft springs, and I could just absolutely smash it everywhere. And I dropped like 0.2, 0.3 in best lap. So yeah, there's been a couple of like really big breakthroughs like that, which have been pretty pivotal for me moving forward and developing a base setup for everyone. So
right. Oh, interesting. Grady comes on with glad you finally listened to us. We only told you 5 years ago to make
yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
easy. Don't worry. Yeah, I'll just whip it up like that. I tell you, 5 years ago, I literally wouldn't have even had the faintest clue where to start. You say make a car, but it's like, yeah, the amount of learning, even just to draw a single part, let alone put a whole car together, manufacture it, and deliver it, is just off the charts, honestly. Like, I've had to evolve so much to make this happen. So yeah, it's easy just saying like, oh yeah, I'll do it, but then actually doing it is a whole different story. So
another good one from Jeff here. Are there any option parts that you would recommend to customers getting started with the SP1?
Yeah, good one. Honestly, like, I have done my best, and this is probably one of the biggest things for me, is I wanted to keep my car at a good price point, like, around the Automatics X-Ray kind of price, because, it's not making anywhere near as much as I, would be great, but it's all about like delivering value for the customer. So for me, it was like pricing it around that range. And because it's my first car, it's more expensive too, because I've like had to get molds made and all that. So all the initial costs are very, very high. So, there's not lots in it, but that's not what it's about. I've had to, I don't know, it's been tricky to keep it at that price, but and you do have to think about how many option parts you're going to make for the car, and if you're going to include them or not, because if you start including them, the price of the car just goes whoop, 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 and you're like, oh crap, like I've really overspent here, and you have to then price your car stupidly high, and then people are going to look at it and go like, oh, that's way too expensive, So I wanted to price it reasonable, but at the same time I wanted to include as much good stuff in the kit as I could. And like looking at the kit, I'm honestly really happy with what the customer gets. Like, I think in this day and age where there's so like, you know, it's easy to just go and do molded parts and plastic bumpers and this and that. I've honestly put so much good stuff in the kit that I think like when you look at that, you don't think like, oh, I've got to upgrade that. Oh, I've got to upgrade that. Like it's, you know, carbon battery hooks, carbon bumper mount, all the stuff I'm known for. It's all in the kit. We even give you the center weights, like the front and rear center weight in front of the motor mount. That's all included in the kit because you need those to get the car up to weight. So I figured, well, rather than making everyone go and spend another $60 buying them after the fact, like that turns the car into a $1,100 car. So I've given them in the kit. So yeah, stuff that is absolutely essential to the running of the car, I've put it in the kit. It comes with 1.0, 1.1, 1.2 sway bars, like one of each, because as you do with springs in this car, you also run different sway bars front to rear most of the time, like a harder rear. So yeah, I've pretty much put every single thing that I've thought is required for the to at least put the car on the track and do well with it in the box. Like I didn't want the customers to having to go out and buy all this option stuff straight up. So in terms of recommending option parts, I would say maybe a couple of weights if you need them. The springs, like there's progressive springs, and there's obviously a full range of other linear springs that aren't in the kit. There's a few optional caster inserts. If you wanted to change your caster by more than 2 degrees, you have to buy these other ones. But in the kit, you can already get 4 and 5 by flipping the caster insert around. You can get 4 degrees and 5 degrees, which is what you would run 95% of the time anyway. And at the rear, you get 2 degrees and 3 degrees from the kit as well, which is what you in the ballpark. And then yeah, you've got other tuning stuff like narrow hexes are always good to have as well. Yep. But honestly, like progressive dampers, so the progressive damper bodies are cool to have just as a tuning option. But as I said, I've just tried my best to make it as out of the box car as I can. As you can see, there's very little plastic on the car. I've tried to make it as much, you know, carbon and alloy and steel just straight out of the box, and just have it you know, at max performance straight away. So, you know, you don't have to go recommending options to everyone. You just build it and put it on the track with a decent setup, and it should be great straight away. So,
yeah, epic. And last proper question from Clive Silver. Good to see you watching on as well, Clive. I'm not surprised you're watching on. How many people will be running the car at the Worlds this year?
Oh, good question. A tricky one, to be honest. There's definitely going to be quite a decent US team because Randy from One Up, my distributor, is putting together a good US team, which is going to be really cool. So I would say I hope we will have 10. I reckon we can have 10 guys, like, you know, because obviously the Worlds is not everyone. It's only the cream of the crop kind of thing. So it's, yeah, I think we could have 10 guys, which honestly for that kind of field and, you know, not everyone gets accepted. I think that'll be great. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to like working as a team. And, you know, when I'm at a race lately, I'm just working by myself and I've got nobody to bounce ideas off. I've got nobody else testing different stuff. Like I am having to do everything. So just to have like collaboration between a whole team, especially at a massive event like that, it's honestly super exciting because yeah, I think we can just like get leaps and bounds ahead faster, you know, whereas instead of taking 12 runs to figure out a setup, we can do it in 4 runs because everyone's trying different stuff and we find out what works fast and what, you know, and not just wasting our time going down down paths. So yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, I think we'll have a fairly decent showing. Considering it's only a couple months after the car's released, like obviously we can't expect too much, and the next Worlds is obviously going to look very, very different, hopefully. So yeah, we'll just take it as it comes, but I'm pretty sure we'll have a fairly good showing.
Yeah. Yeah, Fridge Magnet. Just prefer it and looked it up on YouTube. Perfect. That's awesome. I love to hear that. Clive Go is also willing to be a reliability tester.
Yeah, I can vouch for Clive's reliability testing. I don't know.
I've seen it firsthand, man. I saw him at the start of the Nationals down in Sydney. He managed to hook right-hand corner from his left hand straight from the get-go, just turned full left and then just broke. That was it. That was his first lap. He didn't make a single corner. Impressive. It was incredible. Yeah, I've never seen someone break so instantly. So
he's got mad skills, that's for sure.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
I love a bit of Clive.
Yeah, he's awesome.
There you go. Reliability tester in the books.
Yeah. We'll go for it. All right. You're on, Clive. I'll send you one. If it can survive you, it can survive of just about anything, I reckon.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure he blamed it on something, but you said that something broke, and that didn't make any sense to me.
It was
I
just a
think,
radio. It was a radio glitch, right? Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
That's a nice, easy one. Yeah.
Oh, good. That pretty much wraps up my segment. If there are
Sweet.
any last minute questions, by all means, chuck them in quickly. But we'll start to
Yeah.
wrap this up. We've been chatting away for an hour and a half, which, to be fair, is quite a short stream to what it has been in the past. And
It
with the
could be a
amount
lot
of
longer. Yeah.
yeah, I think to be fair, with the amount of information you've given us, I think the fact that it wasn't 3 hours is pretty incredible. 'Cause
Yeah, I tried not to ramble too much. I mean, honestly, I am so damn passionate about this stuff that I could literally talk for hours. Like, one of my mates, David from up here, he comes around sometimes and he's into the design and engineering side of like just in like normal stuff like mining equipment and stuff like that. And guys like that, I can literally just talk. Like we just don't stop talking. It's like 3 hours. I'm like, dude, you better go home. Like my family's upstairs. I gotta eat dinner. So yeah, it's really cool. Like I just love talking about it and also talking to like-minded people, but just love the hobby and the whole engineering side of everything in this. It's really hard to find like a hobby that gives you gets you this far into this side of things without it being out of reach. Like something like this, you're looking at F1, not F1, but like close to F1 level tech, like motorsport, like, Formula Ford, like all that sort of stuff, like level tech. So to be able to do this on a smaller scale, like there's a lower barrier to entry, you don't have to have as much money to do it. You don't have to, yeah, it's just easier, I think. So it's really cool to be able to go this deep into everything without having to say, have like 3 degrees and, go to work for McLaren or something like that and have 10 years experience. You can learn all this. I learned how to draw off YouTube. I literally binged Fusion 360 tutorials on YouTube. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have this car. I didn't pay a cent for any tutoring. I literally just bought the subscription for Fusion. And I taught myself how to draw and everything. So,
Right.
anyone can do it literally. Like I'm not that special. I just work hard and, I'm passionate about it. So
Yeah. Clive has come back with it was a finger throttle grip glitch.
grip glitch.
Yeah, I can't rag too much on Clive because he's got some stories about me, and I know I've mentioned them in the past, but he could rag on me so hard it would be it'd be devastating. Paul's trying to give it a go here by saying definitely lifted the panel IQ tonight. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. I don't know what you're trying to say, Paul. The manual is usually crazy hard to put together.
The manual, the dreaded manual. Yeah, honestly, that's been one of my least favorite parts. But once you kind of get into a bit of a rhythm, it's not too terrible. But it's tricky because like when you're creating a document like that, you want everything to be uniform and the same. And I find the hardest thing is putting everything in the exact same spots and making sure it looks professional because it's really tricky. Like there's no kind of like template where you just load up Microsoft Word and it goes boom, like here's the instructions. Like you literally it's done in Adobe Illustrator, so it's literally like everything is free and can move wherever it wants. Like all the templates been designed by me, and you've got to try and keep everything in its position and using the same like little symbols everywhere and stuff. And yeah, it's really tedious. And I know Oleg from Awesomatics also hates doing manuals, so I know I'm not alone. I wouldn't say it's going to be an hit it out of the park like an X-ray quality kind of manual, but this is me. I'm not a professional illustrator, so I'm doing my best to make a good, concise manual that's easy to follow. And I'm also planning on doing video tutorial online, which for somebody like me, I feel is massively beneficial because I love watching and seeing somebody do something as opposed to just reading about it. So yeah, I'm going to try and do everything in my power to make the cars as easy and concise to build as possible. So yeah, it's not the funnest part of the job, but it's a necessary evil. And yeah, it's a very important part because I'm looking at these cars, I naturally just I know everything about it, and I just it's easy to assume that everyone else knows what but when you look at something fresh, like it's totally different for someone that's built this thing from the ground up. So I'm trying to kind of like blank slate looking at this thing for the first time, really explain as basically and concisely as possible how to build the car properly. So
Yeah. Stephen's giving you a big congratulations there as well. We'll go through two very similar comments there as well in a second.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, that's an epic comment.
Thank you,
again
man. I
from Steve.
appreciate it. Yeah, honestly, thanks, Steve. So many people have reached out to me, people that I hold in very high regard and have been mates with for a long time, or chatted online from across the other side of the world, and it's honestly blown me away. To get this amount of positive feedback and people just congratulating me is I didn't do it for any of this, but it does feel amazing to have people so pumped on something you've been working so hard at for a while. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I'm very lucky to have as much support as I have. So
yeah. And last question, we'll wrap this up here. Two almost identical questions, which works out pretty well, both from Jade
cool.
and
Buddies.
also Fridge McMillan, both saying, what body have you found to work the best? And
cool.
Add-on question there as well from Fridge Magnet.
Yeah, for stock class, the Wolverine, we've done some testing in stock and mod, because obviously slightly different classes, different bodies, different speeds and everything, just to kind of verify that the car's setups are kind of fairly equal between the two. So the car does work great with the Wolverine in stock, and I would suggest running the Wolverine for anything basically other than modified. For modified, I've been running the Extreme Twister and Twister Speciale. It's a bit tricky to know which one to use. I've found on high grip the Speciale, on lower grip just the normal Twister seems better. The normal Twister has a little bit more natural rotation, but I find the Speciale has higher corner speed. So it's got a little bit less steering, but it's got really good corner speed. So it was kind of weird in the US. I tried both bodies back to back, and if you didn't have a lap timer on, I would have sworn black and blue that the Twister was faster. But the Speciale was actually 0.2 quicker every single lap, which is honestly insane, because I couldn't feel that. And I actually felt like I was going faster with the Twister. So it just goes to show how important lap times are. Something can feel better, but it's not faster. So always have that lap timer on. But yeah, that would be the standard bodies. The rear body post mounts, no, there'll be an option. You can still mount the post through the back of the body kind of thing. That's a bit more of a body option that I'd still leave open to the customer and what they want to do. But I'm actually releasing brand new ones in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out. We've managed to change the game on them again. 50% lighter than the current ones, which they're already pretty light. So they're 1.7 grams each side now, which is pretty insane. So I've been working on that as well behind the scenes, and they've been one of our biggest products ever. To be able to release a better version of them will be really cool, and I think we'll get even more adoption of them now, because 1.7 grams. It's actually funny because I weighed a body post, and a body post is a vertical body post is actually heavier than our wing mount. So if that doesn't convince people that they're light enough, then I don't know what will. So yeah, that'll be cool. So keep an eye out for them as well.
Yeah. Too easy, man. Once again, I really appreciate you for jumping on for this. And
man, it's always a pleasure. I love it. It's awesome to chat with you and everyone's questions. So yeah, anytime. Really love being on here. So.
No, thank you very much, mate. And also, thank you very much for everyone jumping on and watching.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been cool.
Commenting, all that sort of things. The likes and shares have been phenomenal. Really do appreciate that as well. It means a lot to myself. Obviously, Ryan jumping on made a massive difference as well. And
you flatter me. Thank you. No, always happy. Always happy.
Yeah, the information you brought.
It's a pleasure. It's honestly nice to be able to chat with people and tell people the real experience, because there's not many people who will get out in front of their business and talk about all the nitty gritty that happens behind. But I'm just another guy on my journey, and I want people to, I'm happy to tell people, because I want them to hear what goes into it and everything like that, and maybe even inspire someone to do it themselves in the future. So yeah, I absolutely love being about it, talking about it, and being on here chatting to everyone and you. So
yeah, no, I appreciate it as well, mate. As for streams, guys, just a quick wrap up. I am hoping to do a couple more streams a little bit more regularly going forward. That is highly dependent on work, the actual work schedule, that side of things. Unfortunately, this side of little venue here doesn't actually bring in all the money that I need it to call it a full-time job. So a lot of that does revolve around work schedule. But for streams and stuff, hopefully they become a little more regular. Hopefully we get some more legends on, just like Ryan here. Other than that, guys, we'll wrap it up at that, and we'll see you all later.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.